Well, hello there. Well, hello there. Welcome again to this wonderful opportunity to experience the Word of God just one chapter at a time. As we have been going through this here throughout the month of January, we have began on this great journey. We are 3 days in, January 3rd. It is the third day as we are going to be reviewing and um, reading of the Proverbs chapter 3. We'll be reading it in its entirety according to the English Standard Version. But here today, we got some great stuff that we're going to be really focusing on today. Just dealing with the audience of um, of the proverb writers. We've kind of dealt in some things. We're going to dig deeper into them throughout this month when it comes down to the author and to some of the other backgrounds of the book of Proverbs. We're just going to continue to build on it more and more throughout this month. Our goal is that by the end of January, we've been to experience the whole book or the whole the book of Proverbs, one chapter at a time, each and every day. Now, hold up. One of the things here, so we have, if I could just say it in this sense, we have I've broken this down to a sevenfold aspect of who this audience is primarily, or who this audience is addressing. First of all, the first group of people that this audience, the primary, here is the goal, the target group, the primary audience. They are those who are young and inexperienced. Those who are young and inexperienced. Let me just put it back up there one more time. Yes, the primary audience is the young and the inexperienced. Hold on, here's the evidence of it. You got it right here in Proverbs chapter 1, verse number 4. It says, here it is that this was written to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. And then he got this repeatedly in chapters 1 through 7. This phrase, my son, my son. These are young people preparing to enter into adult responsibility. Those who form habits, values, and decision-making patterns. This is written to those who are learners, who would morally and spiritually impressive. Hey, this reminds me of one of my great comedians that I really love. He has this running, standing joke when it came down. He said, raised my kids once they became adults. He said, I moved from being your provider to your advisor. And so we see here that Solomon, he takes the same kind of approach with his son and with this younger generation. Like, now I am preparing you to enter into adult responsibility. Now I don't provide for you, but what I do have for you is if I was you, I would. And so we see those type of statements that kind of really embrace that type of value. Why would these be viable to them? Because these offer guardrails before mistakes were even made. It provided instructions before independence began to truly set in. It helped them to discern between wisdom and deception. And hold up, when we see this today with our adolescents and our young adults we see the need that is there, where these guardrails need to be in place, where they need to understand and have these instructions and help being able to discern between wisdom and discernment. We need this for our college students, young professionals, and even new parents, but even new believers learning how to live out their faith. But Proverbs is still even essential for us today, because our young people face more information than they can ever get with wisdom. I don't want to say ever can get with wisdom, but information is all over the place, and they get information a whole lot quicker than they can and will get wisdom. We see the cultural voices that normalize the foolishness and impulsivity of things. We also know that the Proverbs, it will equip them to be able to discern truth and not just consume content. And we know that this is a content consuming generation. Whew, I could speak a whole lot on that, but here it is, our key insight. Yeah, Proverbs does not wait for failure to teach. It teaches to prevent failure. Mm. Proverb does not wait for failure to teach. It prevents failure, or it teaches to prevent failure. And so, hold on, that was back dealing with that. That was the primary audience, the young and inexperienced. Secondly, our secondary audience is those called the simple. They're teachable, but they are underdeveloped. And so we'll hear this phrase about being simple. How long will you be simple? How long will you be this way? And so we know that not only is this for the young and inexperienced, but it's also for those who are the simple. How would we figure this out at? Well, here it is. It's right there in the text. We can find it in places. Proverbs 1:4. Going back to that again, he said that to give prudence to the simple. Simple, this open-minded, but easily influenced. I like that definition. They are open-minded. They open for it, but they are easily influenced. They're not they're not the rebellious. They're just untrained. They don't have the depth, the discernment, and the stability. They are vulnerable to deception due to their inexperience. So these proverbs becomes valuable to them as it moves them from being naive into having discernment. It replaces their impulsiveness with understanding. It gives structure to moral reasoning. And hold on, there are spiritual curiosity today, but biblical ungrounded individual. There is spiritual curiosity that exists amongst our youth, amongst our children, but they are biblically ungrounded as individuals. And Christians with church exposure, they can they're I guess I should say it like this. They are like Christians with church exposure, but never been exposed to discipleship or have very strong senses of discipleship. It is people that is shaped more by culture than they are by scripture. These are who the simple people would be. And so we see that the Proverbs, they are vital even in our world today, when social media amplifies voices without wisdom, when opinions are mistaken for truth, when Proverbs train people to think biblically but not emotionally. That's it. Let me put it like this. Proverbs train people to think biblically and not just emotionally. The simple, it ain't that they are unintelligent. They don't lack intelligence, but what they lack is instruction. But hold up, Nader. And so we see here that not only um, do we have the primary audience of the young and inexperienced, but we have the secondary audience, those who are simple, those who are teachable, but um, they are under or undeveloped. But then hold up, we have also this third group, the growing wise, those who have already have some sense of understanding. We're going to see some of that even in today's reading through Proverbs chapter 3. But here it is. It says, look, in Proverbs number 1, he says in verse 5, let the wise hear and increase in learning. So when you're thinking about those who are growing wise, those who already have understanding, they're already, those are the ones that are already walking in wisdom. These are maybe folks like the leaders, the elders, the teachers. These are like people that are committed to lifelong growth. We know we live in an academic, and someone was in the academic world, they would say, I'm a lifelong, a lifetime learner. I'm a forever student. We ought to be forever students when it comes to wisdom. And so look, why? Because wisdom is never truly complete. Wisdom it continually redefines discernment for even complex situations. Wisdom knows how to reinforce humility and keep us to be and to be teachable. The modern day, and when we look at this, We will find this in people that like mature believers. We'll find this with church leaders and ministry workers, professionals navigating ethical complexities. But this year, these proverbs are still essential for even those, because leadership without wisdom can become dangerous. And experience is not a replacement for dependence on God. And Proverbs prevents pride by reminding us that even when we are wise, that we still need more wisdom. So wisdom grows only when humility remains. And so we see that this is the growing wise, those who already have understanding. Here's another group of audience that this is for parents and families. Parents and families. Like this here, we got this, and when we look at Proverbs, it's still Proverbs chapter 1. It really unlocks a lot of these things. We see it in chapter 6 and verse 20, chapter 22, verse 6 or so. It has its emphasis on parental instruction. These are parents who are responsible for shaping the future generations. These are parents, these head of households that are in covenant communities as believers, covenant relationships with one another and with God. These proverbs, they are valuable. They were valuable to them as it was equipment for parents to help teach values, disciplines, and the fear of the Lord. It helps establish generational faithfulness. Hold up, we talk a lot about whether we have generational wealth, but I want to know, do you have generational wisdom? This is equipment. Look, I love watching football. Football, we're in some really good places. They got the college, on a college level. They're aiming up and gearing to and getting together and playing all these bowl games, preparing to play in the playoffs and all these different things to determine a champion. They will not show up on that field without their proper equipment. And can you imagine me trying to record a live and I don't have my laptop, or I don't and I don't have my tablet, I don't have my camera? Like we need equipment to do what we are called to do. And even as parents, we need these proverbs, and as they needed them. It was parents that depended on proverbs to teach these values, disciplines, and the fear of the Lord. And so whether we are parents, whether we are guardians, whether we are grandparents, we have blended families and single parent households that is in need of wisdom. And these proverbs are even essential for us today. It come it parenting. Why is it essential? Why? Because nowadays parenting is in competition with screens and is in competition with culture. Why is it still essential? Because parents were never, we have many parents, I should say, many parents was never disciplined themselves. Why do we still need these proverbs today? Because proverbs give language, boundaries, and vision for godly parenting. Here it is, that our key insight of Proverbs: help families discipline, or excuse me, I should say, Proverbs help families disciple and not just discipline. Proverbs help families disciple and not just discipline. And so we see 4 is for parents and families. Number five, it is for leaders, rulers, and those who are in charge of making decisions, those decision makers. And we be able to see that when we look at Proverbs chapter 8, when we look at Proverbs 16, Proverbs 25, those first 7 verses, Proverbs 31, those first 9 verses. Leaders, rulers, and decision makers. There was like the kings, the officials, the judges. These are the people whose decisions impact others. This is why in the days of the Proverbs, this is why it was valuable, because it taught justice. It also taught humility. It talked about restraint, and it taught accountability. Hold on, but not only was it good teachings, but it was also good warnings. It warned against pride. Proverbs warned against corruption, and Proverbs warned against the abuse of power. And even in today's times when we have pastors, minister leaders, and elected officials, business owners, managers, and community leaders, Proverbs is still essential because we live in a time where leadership failures often stems from character flaws and not skill deficiencies. Proverbs helps us to emphasize who you are more than and before what you do. And godly leadership requires more clarity and not just competence. And so we see here that leadership reveals character under pressure. And so it is for leaders, rulers, and decision makers. But hold up, wait a minute. There's also Proverbs is written to the fool, those who resist wisdom. Here it is. We see it so often. We've already experienced it a couple of times in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. We're going to see it some more in Proverbs chapter 12 and Proverbs 18. These fools, they were not unintelligent, but they were morally stubborn. They were resistant to correction and being accountable. Oh, they said everybody play the fool sometimes. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to play the fool. Not according to this. That I could be smart, but stubborn. That I have more confidence in self rather than in God. That's a dangerous place to be. And this Proverbs helps to identify those that was in the day and time. It was written as a warning, not an endorsement. It was written to show the consequences of rejecting wisdom. It begins to contrast, as it writes about the foolish one, contrast wise and foolish living. Hold up, let's not get so hard up on the biblical days of the Old Testament, because we have people right now today that are Christians who reject biblical truth. We have individuals governed by pride, anger, and self-will. We even have believers who refuse to be corrected and to be held accountable. And this is why Proverbs is even still essential today. Why? Because we live in a world where foolishness is often celebrated, where correction is mistaken for hate. It is here, though, where Proverbs lovingly expose self-deception. The fool's problem does not have anything to do with their ignorance, but it has more to do with their resistance. And so we see that it's written to the fools, those who resist wisdom. Finally, number 7, we haven't even gotten to our reading today. But number 7, the whole covenant community, the whole community that was in agreement. Proverbs 1, chapter 1, verses 1 through 6, it uses things. We could see this whole community. It talks about homes, what happens in courts, what happened in schools, and what happened in worship. And Proverbs was something that was valuable to the whole community as it established a shared moral value or shared moral values. It is valuable to the community as it promotes justice, it promotes peace, and it promotes social stability. It is valuable. It was valuable to the community as it created wisdom as a communal or something that was even to be pursued by the whole company, by the whole community, I should say. In today's time, when we got society that collapses when wisdom is ignored, when churches often drift without practicing discipleship, Proverbs form spiritual, mature communities, not just informed individuals. It is here wisdom is personal, but uh, its impact is communal, and it is so valuable for us today as Proverb addresses real life issues that we believers face on a daily basis. It's so valuable for us today because it bridges theology with practice. Proverbs is valuable and essential today because it trains discernment in a noisy culture. Proverbs is valuable today because it shapes character before having to deal with the crisis. Proverbs is essential as it grounds God's people in timeless truths. In a world rich in knowledge, but poor in wisdom, Proverbs remains God's classroom for everyday life. And so this is why we're taking this beginning part of January, this beginning part of the new year, this month of January, and reading a chapter of Proverbs a day. And so with that being said, let us now prepare our hearts to read from Proverbs and Proverbs chapter 3. Let me just change this right here. 3 and 3. All right. We're reading from Proverbs chapter 3. And we're going to be reading this according to the English Standard Version. So just follow right on along with us throughout the reading of Proverbs chapter 3. My son, do not forget my teachings, but let your heart keep my commandments for length of days and years of life, and peace they will add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. So you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil, and it will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruit of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him who he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding, for the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit is better than gold. Mm. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you can desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold fast are called blessed. The Lord, by wisdom, founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. By his knowledge, the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down the dew. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, and they will be life for your soul and adornment for your neck. Then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. If you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror or of the ruin of the wicked when it comes. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again tomorrow, and I will give it, when you have it with you. Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly besides you. Do not contend with a man for no reason when he has done you no harm. Do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. For the devious person is an abomination to the Lord, but the upright are in his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the dwelling of the righteous. Toward the scorners he is scornful, but to the humble he gives favor. The wise will inherit honor, but fools get disgrace. Amen. That's conclude the reading of Proverbs chapter 3. We read in its entirety according to the English Standard Version. May the Lord bless you, and may the Lord keep you. That is my humble prayer.